Okay, as you folks are all settling back in from your break, so we are not done yet with our outstanding women who are dedicated to promoting equal rights. Our next presenter is Nycci Jones. She is the Director of Organizational Development and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Nelnet, Inc. Nelnet, Inc. is a United States-based conglomerate that deals in the administration and repayment of student loans and education financial services. This company is headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska. I said this about her company just to give you an idea of how important Ms. Jones is. She is going to talk to us today about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it will have a little bit of a twist that we will find intriguing and helpful. Also, the Q&A here for questions for Nycci Jones. Ms. Jones?
Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for having me. And they will use Q&A, I understand, Joan, for questions. Let me get my video started. Great. Well, again, thank you and hello. My name is Nycci Jones. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And thank you, AAUW, for allowing time today to have a conversation, really, on a conversation with you this morning on different techniques that can be used to bring more diversity into your branches. So yes, it is about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but there's a little bit of a spin to it. And it's about how do you get more diversity into your branches. So in our time together this morning, I would encourage participation. I logged in a little earlier and I see that you guys have lots of great questions and you're engaged, and that's really what's going to make our session here today successful. While we think about the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it isn't new to any of us, right? But 2020 was a wake-up call for organizations to really examine their DE&I initiatives, and advancing branch diversity is more important than ever before. And so I want to ask you, and again, you can respond in the Q&A, what has been your biggest challenges as you pursue more diverse members? And you can drop that in the Q&A section. What has been some of those challenges? I'll give a pause so that you guys can type in. There you go. Living in non-diverse suburban communities. Okay, thank you, Jane. Low diversity in our areas. Yes, thank you, Darcy. Anyone else? What are some of those biggest challenges as you pursue more diversity and for your branches? We'll go with those two so far. So living in a non-diverse suburban communities and again, low diversity in your areas. Thank you for that, ladies. Well, my intended outcome today is for all of you to walk away with some nugget of information that will propel you into the direction of recruiting more diverse members, and really speaking to how do I get more diverse members if it isn't present in my community. So today we're going to talk about why diversity is important in advertising, fostering authenticity that supports human connectivity by utilizing different networks, and using social media platforms to connect to diverse audiences as well. So why diversity in advertising? This becomes very, very important just for the simple fact of what two of you said in the question and answer box, in that there's low diversity in my community. So let's talk about some statistics to kick this off. Diversity is important in advertising because media should more accurately reflect the American consumer population. And because we as people and consumers are more likely to buy something from a company that commits to diversity. If you only experience the United States through its commercials and its ads, you might get the impression that we are composed of nearly a homogenous population. While things are greatly improving in this space, there's still room for highlighting diverse voices. In fact, the US Census Bureau reported that only 60.1% of the population identified as white, alone with the 2021 census. That's a little more. That's a little more than half of the population, indicating that the remaining 39.9% is racially diverse. So despite our externally multicultural population, an article from Forbes magazine reported that only 26% of African Americans, 10% of Hispanics, and 3% of Asians feel represented in advertising. You're probably thinking, like, what does that have to do with bringing diversity into our branches? I want you to think about your advertising as AAUW, right? Part of this, these statistics that I'm talking about now can correlate to bringing in more diverse candidates into your branches, even if you're in a low diverse community. Part of this may be because 85.4% of the ad industry is white and are simply reflecting their own experience and subconscious biases in these ads that they create. Whatever the cause, though, is important that it's an issue that needs to be addressed. So I want you to think about your site, which shows diversity. I went out and I looked at it, but also think about your branch advertisements. Does it reflect the reality of the beautiful, diverse world that we live in? Another reason why diversity is important in advertising is that it really allows people to see themselves within an ad campaign. So rather than merely sympathize with the actors in a commercial, when people see people who look like and act like them, that shared experience really translates to something stronger. And that translation is empathy. So potential members will be able to make a deeper connection to your advertisement and to your brand when they feel seen and understood. On the other hand, when consumers feel that they are consistently left out or they're underrepresented or misrepresented, it can create some negative feelings about you or even your organization. We at Nelnet had to fix this for us. We have seen great results. If you went to nelnetinc.com about a year ago, you've seen college kids running off. It looks like with backpacks running off to class. That was not a true reflection of who we truly are as an organization. And that is part of the advertising. So what we did is we had to go in and say, we had to evaluate and say, we've got to make our advertisement and put those dollars towards advertisement that reflects the body of our organization and who we really are. And I'm glad to report that we were able to get that done. And it's been a great rendering for advertising for people who want to come and work at Nelnet. What we had to understand is that failure to represent diversity in our advertising may even send a message to our potential new associates or new employees, and it could also that we only value the business of a certain group, right? So making a conscious effort to include diversity does not need to be an act of tokenism. Rather, it can demonstrate a commitment to equality and fairness within your brand. We think about fostering authenticity that supports human connectivity, utilizing different networks. As humans, we operate within many different networks, all of which influence our perspectives and serve different purposes in our lives. So while most networks are formed around a shared experience, such as the company we work for or the city we live in, or identities that we hold, it's important to be cognizant of the networks we are a part of and the diversity that is present within them. So, given that our networks influence the way we think and the opportunities we give and receive, lack of diversity within these networks can propagate inequitable systems and create echo chambers of perspective. So when you think about networks, think about your own networks. I'm going to talk about three of them. There are several types of networks, and they all benefit from intentionality, being intentional, focused, and equity and diversity. So the three that I'll discuss is professional networks, social networks, and centered spaces. And what are those? When you talk about professional networks, the baseline for professional networks consists of the colleagues we work with in our company. While some elements of this network might be decided at a higher level, such as who's on your team, which people you collaborate with on specific projects, and so forth, we have a lot of influence over the broader makeup of this network. So the people that we decide to mentor, the people that we decide to sponsor, the people that we spend time with, think about well, in a remote world, but think back, who did you spend time with over lunch? Who do you take out for coffee to have coffee chats? And the people we go to for advice and guidance as well, all kind of make up our professional network. Being intentional, though, about diversity in this space of that network will result in better decision making for us as individuals and more equitable outcomes within our organizations. So just like research shows that having more diversity on a board of directors produces results for the company, having more diversity in your personal board of directors, and that's a term many use to describe their personal network, can yield better career results. And aside from career results, you can pull more people in as well. Social networks often don't directly impact your career at all, right? But the insights and ideas that we learn from these networks generally influence the way we think, which in turn influences our work outputs. So in chat, how many, or the Q&A section, how many social media users worldwide do you think exist? How many social media users worldwide do you think exist? I'm looking at some of you guys' answers from before, yes. Billions. Yes, 2 billion, 1 billion. Thank you. It is a mind-boggling number. Let's talk about that. Sorry, let's talk about that. While the potential for a large social network is bigger than ever before, as you can think of, there is 3.2 billion social media users worldwide. So when you think about the construct, or you think about saying, where are these people? How can I get in touch with them? They're not within my immediate circle. Where do I go from here? You got to think on a larger scale, right? Again, there are 3.2 billion social media users at this point. So when you have Mary, you said the older age of most of our memberships and loss of touch with the working world, it's expanding that purview to actually connecting through social networks, right? The potential for surrounding yourself with an echo chamber is bigger than ever before. So it's not difficult to expand your online social networks to be more diverse simply by following and connecting with people that holds different identities, but that hold different identities and also viewpoints. So while this is a great start with the social piece, it shouldn't end here. When we're expanding our in real life social networks to be more diverse, it's incredibly important, both because it can lead to more balanced views and more fuel for new ideas, and because social connections can often lead to professional connections as well. Although having diverse networks is very important for expanding circles of influence and achieving equitable results, that doesn't negate the need for centered spaces, particularly for populations that are underrepresented or marginalized. Um, Being surrounded by colleagues that do not look like you or share your identities can reduce a sense of belonging, which can be detrimental to the overall goal of diversifying and getting those new members and new blood into your branches. So let's talk about establishing new and diverse relationships. I'll go over 5 items here, because you want to be cognizant of the networks that you are part of and being intentional about the diversity of those networks. So just take a pause and think about your networks and who are the people within your networks. Do they all look like you? Do they differ in some way? And how can you tap into more diverse people? The benefit of expanding our views, really experiences and connections, is well worth the effort. Both of us have individual and for our organization. And today I'm talking specifically about AAUW. So let's take a look at 5 key areas to consider when establishing new and diverse relationships. We're going to look at communication, culture, occupation, education, and activity and sports. So to help you get an idea of how and what you can do. So when you're seeking to establish a new and diverse relationship, a relationship, strike up a conversation with someone who doesn't look like you. Be approachable. It could be at an event or at work. As I mentioned before, seek out those you believe will offer new ideas and perspectives, especially those with a global outlook and network. Probably thinking, well, how do I do that? In the next section, we're going to talk about social media. Culture. Learn about and respect their culture. When you meet someone, respect their way of life, their traditions, their customs, faith, or religion, and the list can go on, right? You don't have to agree with everything they believe. However, find a way to mutually respect each other's passions. Recently just had a associate resource group meeting, and one of the women that joined had a hijab on, and she touched it and she called it a scarf, and then she called it her hijab. And afterwards we connected and I said, never refer to your hijab as a scarf. Be authentically you. We respect, everybody will be treated with dignity and respect, and educate us on what the hijab is so that we are learning from each other. And she actually really appreciated that feedback. And she said, I love being here at Nelnet because I truly feel like I belong here and I can show up and be authentically myself. And so culture is a big part of that expansion of your network as well. Let's look at occupation. So if the person you're establishing the relationship with is in your same profession, you can use common profession as a way to break down barriers, be receptive to learning from them, and also listening to their advice and or perspectives. Education. If the person you're establishing the relationship with is in your same profession, use your common profession and education as a way to break down those barriers. And then activities and sports. Many times we connect with people because we enjoy the same activities or sports. So it's essential to find out similar activities or even sports that would create an even stronger bond between you and your connection. That can be, I have a picture of yoga, but that could be golf, tennis, bike riding, whatever it is that you do. Establish, several of my friends were initially established through participation in common sports or activities and even professional organization boards. So consider sharing activities with your new connection or inviting them to participate alongside of you. And I know all of this might sound like a lot of work. However, I encourage you to take the easy, not to take the easy route. The overall benefit of having a diverse network definitely outweighs the amount of work it takes to build it. Can it be uncomfortable? Yes, it can. Some of you might think that your current non-diverse network is good enough, but I would then challenge you to focus on what will you gain by diversifying your actual network and bringing in new members into AAUW. So that's 3 parts of networking, but let's talk about that social media aspect. If you live in low diverse areas, if people are basically aging out and they're retiring and or they're, working and they're working women and really can't make the meetings, using social media platforms is an amazing way to connect to diversifying your audience. Because as humans, we operate with many different networks, all of which can influence our perspectives and serve different purposes in our lives. So while most networks are formed around a shared experience, such as maybe the company we work for, the city we live in, or the identities, again, that we hold, it's important to be cognizant of the networks that we have. So given that our networks influence the way that we think and the opportunities we give and receive, lack of diversity within those networks can really hurt your system, and it can really hurt your goal of diversifying. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to take a deeper dive into the different social media platforms and how they can be utilized. In the chat, I would like for you to list which of these social media platforms do you currently are actively using? Which of these social media platforms are you actively using? You don't see the slides. Okay, what happened? Hold on, I'm sorry about that. All right. Are we back up? Can you see the slides now? Awesome. All right. So again, in the question and answer section, tell me, which of these social media platforms are you currently using right now? Okay, we've got a lot of Facebooks, LinkedIn, Nextdoor. I've been hearing a lot about Nextdoor. We have some that don't use it at all. All right, we've got some Facebook. Okay. Very good. Very good. Social media, and the reason why I ask, because when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is where you go. We're in this remote world. It's starting to open up a lot more than what we've experienced over the last 2 years. But in this remote world, people have become very connected to social media. So social media was once mostly just for fun by anybody, right? But not anymore. Social media is now really a critical part of the way people in most walks of life they communicate, and a key part of how work gets done, from corporations all the way to governments to affiliations into organizations. So looking at these are extremely important. Social media is going to allow you to do at least 4 important things. It will allow you to, 1, discover new ideas and trends, 2, connect with existing and new audience in deeper ways, 3, bring attention and traffic to your organization, and 4, build, craft, and enhance your brand as AAUW. As social media has become more popular, there's an estimated 81% of Americans have some form of a social media account. 81% of Americans. So that tells you how impactful it is. So let's go into each one of these social media presence. So LinkedIn. LinkedIn, with its 810 million members, is the quintessential professional network, and one that not only is optimally as it could be, but most people just take it for granted and started using it when they panicked when they had to change jobs. But you have 810 members on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn offers a variety of ways to expand your networks by finding and connecting with relevant professionals in your industry. The key here is to find and approach and connect with folks you already know. So don't forget about your own networks, folks you'd like to know, and folks you should know. So you should always post your own content, showing off your expertise on a regular basis. But be brief but personal in your first messages. So if you see someone on LinkedIn and they're connecting with you and you want to connect with them, people don't have the patience to read through a long message that looks and feels kind of spammy, especially if it's your first time connecting and they're hearing from you. So my advice is to keep it brief. Write those 3, do 3 sentences, and your entire message should be easy to read on a phone screen, right? So LinkedIn also has in-mail analysis, and they did a report and found that messages under 100 words perform better, and response rates decrease significantly as word counts increase beyond 500 words. So you have to be cognizant of that. Of course, the content and a ton of the messages matter too, but the pros who get the best response rates treat their messages as handwritten notes with a personal touch. So remember, under 100 words, anything beyond 500, people are just not going to read it. Twitter, it's 206 million users, has 280 characters to say what you need to say, right? It offers room to express your thoughts and ideas, but keep in mind that along with the strategic use of photos and videos will continue to help you stand out. There's no need to use all 280 characters in every post, but Twitter can be more of a conversational platform than others. So be sure to understand the differences. And I want to go over those really briefly here between retweets, quote tweets, right? So Twitter can be if you between retweets, your replies and your DMs, which are direct messages. Retweets are ways for you to share and optionally comment on others' posts. So choosing quote tweets means you add a comment above someone's post. Just hitting retweet means it's sent to your followers without any commentary from you. So with replies are public ways to respond to posts by others and carry on that conversation that others actually see. And then The good old DMs, right? The direct messages. Again, direct messages are a way for you to connect privately with someone. In order to be able to DM someone, they have to follow you, or they have opted for the setting that allows anyone to DM them. You also have a feature called group DMs that are an effective way to have more focused conversations among a larger group. Twitter allows you to have a private account protected, and but if you're using Twitter for business, have an open account makes more sense so that people can connect with you. The instantaneous nature of Twitter means you're able to know in real time about developments in your areas of interest, and also share, comment, and be a part of a global conversation that extends beyond people that are your friends, that you're friends with. Twitter also has live video that allows you to share video and interact with those posting videos that matter to you as well. Twitter also has polls that you can use as well if you want to take a poll. And then we've got the hashtag. The use of hashtags and always should be done in a professional manner, of course, participating in popular hashtags when they are relevant to the work that you're doing. The key here is to keep hashtags simple, clear, and unique so that your hashtags aren't hijacked by some other brand with something similar as what you're doing. Facebook. Facebook, it of course is the largest number of users. A lot of you all responded in the Q&A and said that you are Facebook users. It's a worldwide phenomenon, and it's beloved by both companies, organizations, your friends, your family. Everybody uses Facebook, right? So Facebook, with more than 2 billion users worldwide, that is the most popular and most influential of the social media networks. It's a great way to connect with your family and friends, and it remains mainly a personal network for most people. They have Facebook Live. Most platforms, Facebook offers privacy settings as well. So you can connect with influencers in your field to connect to more diverse people as well, and help shape what others think of you through the use of your Facebook platform.
Nycci, I'm going to
Yes.
need to encourage you to, we're running a little late in what we expected today. Could I ask you to wrap up in about 5 minutes so that
Yep.
we can be more on our scheduled time?
Absolutely. Thanks, Susan. I'm sorry about that. I was trying to keep track of time.
Not you. I'm doing it for you. So I'm sorry we're running a little later.
I hope this is useful information. So I'm going to speed this along. So Instagram has 815 million users and is increasingly part of the business world. So any company aimed at looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, looking at consumers, including travel, beauty. There's so much more that you can do on Instagram. We are also seeing older B2B companies like General Electric and IBM starting to use Instagram to reach a broader audience. Instagram is obsessive audience, loves great visuals, and you can use your content for AAUW to build an audience here. With Instagram, though, patience and experimentation is key when you find the right formula that works for you and your organization. For example, spend some time looking through popular hashtags, we just talked about that, to see if your post is a fit so that more people can discover you. So having demographic limitations, social media takes that barrier away from you. Instagram, 293 million users. There's a variety of tools and tips. Despite the competition of those other networks, we have Snapchat. Snapchat remains one of the most popular social media platforms today, particularly for younger users, right? Someone's talked about people aging out and retiring. The number of daily active users jumped from 218 million in 2019 to 265 million in the fourth quarter of 2020. And now they're at 293. So these are just, Snapchat may may make sense if you're going to target younger millennials and younger folks to your organization. So what opportunities do you see by using these platforms? Social media can be a highly effective tool for diversifying and evolving your network, the diversity in your branches. And with that said, it can be a challenge to reach out to people. We acknowledge that, and that you just don't know. Too many people focus on trying to network with senior people. Instead, I would challenge you to prioritize building relationship with your peers, with people who are earlier in their careers. Also, don't neglect the people that you already know. Your network, right, is rooted in existing real life experiences. So put effort into connecting more regularly with people, and you can do that through these social media platforms. It really opens up an incredible possibilities for strengthening your personal networks and making sure you approach online networking as an extension of how you interact with others in the real world, and connecting with people personally by finding that common ground, and then build trust and long-term relationships rather than one-time interactions. And with that, I know we're over time. Do we have any questions? And I'm so sorry that it wasn't sharing initially. I apologize for that.
I'm looking for questions as well. Let's see if
Okay.
there's anything at the bottom of the Q&A. One thing I want to share about Nycci is that she and I were colleagues at Nelnet until I retired about 6 years ago. And she has just tremendous things. They've won awards at Nelnet for increasing and improving DEI and diversity and the way people can interact at Nelnet. So Nycci, I'd like to hope that if we have questions, or if any of the branches have considerations and things they'd like to find out more about, I would like to be able to come back to you and say, what about this? Or what about that? So that we've got kind of a consultant approach, because I think that these ideas of social networking and social media, shoot, I'm 75. I'm barely even in the social media universe. So I feel like it's a real wake-up call to what we need to do to expand our connections.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And yes, any questions that you have, I would definitely be open to answering those.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your being here today. And
thank you.
I honor what you're doing at Nelnet too.
Thank you. Thank you. And ladies, have a wonderful conference, and thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you, Nycci. I know my mind was buzzing as you were talking, and I was